you know that you can be a dreamer? You can see visions. You can prophesy. You can float in the gifts of the Spirit. You can have all kind of prophetic intercession and prayers and things of that nature, that you are able to flow, tear Satan's kingdoms down and things of that nature, and not be a prophet. You can be an evangelist and flow just like a prophet. Evangelists and prophets flow so closely together that you cannot always tell the difference. Evangelists, they dream, they see, they know, they prophesy, they do everything just like a prophet. But there are differences that a prophet does that the evangelist does not. The first thing is, the prophet has confirmation from God that they are a prophet, not from people only, because people do confirm, but not only from people. I have heard people say, my pastor called me to be a prophet or told me that I am a prophet, but they never heard from God. And you are a prophet to your pastor, but you cannot go to the nations or go to the world if God did not send you. You may go to the local church and be in that body where you serve as a prophet, because you flow in the gifts of an evangelist and they want to call you a prophet. You're a prophet to your pastor, but it does not mean that you are a prophet to God if you have not heard God. God has not shown up. If you have not seen Jesus in any form, you have not seen Jesus in your dreams, in a vision, or come into your room and tell you that he has called you to go to the nations, to go to the world. And I know that the scripture says, go ye to the world and make disciples of all men. That's something that we are all called to do. But when it comes to the prophet is on assignment. The prophet is not going to do anything outside of those gifts unless God tells the prophet to do it. That's the next thing. The prophet will prophesy and flow in the gifts to the Spirit and tear down hell and do everything that they need to do, warring and everything that the evangelist does. But when it comes to assignment, if the prophet has an agenda and God has an agenda over here, and God tells that prophet, I need you to be in Israel on July 20th, 2025, 2026. No matter what else is on that calendar, the prophet is going to be where God calls him to be, because God has the prophet on assignment. The prophet is a mouthpiece. The prophet needs to be in position to do and to say what God has said. The evangelist is going to flow. The evangelist is going to show up wherever they're asked to come, and wherever they are, they're going to turn the city upside down. But it's not necessarily by assignment. Wherever they go, they are called to save souls, to win lives, to change lives, to give hope, to encourage, to cause conversion, preach salvation. The evangelist will win the souls no matter what. Confess with your mouth, believe in your heart, thou shalt be saved. The prophet is not going to leave room for you to straddle a fence and decide in between two worlds. And this is why a lot of people don't like the prophet, because the prophet is going to be black and white in a sense. It either is or it ain't. Either you're going to get right or you're going to bust hell wide open. But the evangelist going to give you all kind of room and leeway. Just give your life to Christ. You can always get yourself together later. You just need to get your soul right so that you can enter into heaven. If anything happens today or tomorrow, you will be ready, things of that nature. Prophet ain't going to just keep it that simple, because it's urgent for those that the prophet is going to win. And the reason why I believe that God really wanted me to press in on this, because there are a lot of prophets and evangelists who are misdiagnosed. You have evangelists who think that they're evangelists, but they are actually prophets, because God has showed up many times and said to them that, I'm sending you here. But because they are stuck under somebody else's agenda and doing what somebody else has placed them to do, they're not being obedient to God, even though they're gifted, even though they are flowing. They are on assignment from people and waiting for opportunities and things of that nature for people to give them their circle of little rotation of ministers and things of that nature, when God has called them to a whole nation. And then there are evangelists who are misdiagnosed in thinking that they are prophets, and they're under a lot of stress and burned out, because they're free to flow, but can't flow the way that they want to flow, because they're trying to operate outside of the element to which it is that they are called. So they have a lot of heaviness and a lot of warfare, and they're burnt out and things of that nature, because they're trying to flow in something that somebody told them that they were called to do, when God never showed up and gave them the grace. The mantle that is placed upon the prophets, allow the prophets, even though it's heavy, it's a heavy mantle, but it's so light on the prophet, because it's what the prophet is called to do. So when somebody else is trying to operate out of a gift that they are not called to, it's very heavy, it's very weighty. And it comes with not only the weight of the mantle that they're trying to carry, but also the warfare that comes along with it. So the misdiagnosis causes them to be under unnecessary warfare. And the same with the evangelist, with the prophet who is an evangelist. They're receiving the warfare of a prophet, because the enemy knows that this is a prophet. You have a mark on your forehead. You are a prophet, but you're operating as an evangelist. And just because you operate and you think that you are an evangelist, or you know that you are a prophet, but somebody has put you in position as the evangelist, you're in disobedience when you know clearly what God has called you to do. And it doesn't matter what somebody else don't accept or want you to do. You have to accept who you are. And if you're in a place where they don't accept the fivefold ministry, it's not that you need to leave and you flow in your gift and do what you need to do there, but you don't allow them to restrict you into the cycles of man's hand, instead of you being and going and doing what God has called you to do. You may not be able to prophesy and give a word in that church, but you got a whole world out here waiting on your gift and on your call, on what God has placed in you to do. So time out for excuses. But in the same token, you may be a prophet who think you're an evangelist. You may be a prophet who's sitting as an evangelist because people don't believe in the prophet. You may be a prophet who is actually an evangelist. You're out of order when you don't hear the things that God has told you because somebody else has told you. Fivefold ministry is able to tell you who you are, in the confirmation of what God has said. But if you've gotten confirmation from man and never got confirmation from God, you need to step back and wait and say, God, I need to hear this from you, not from what somebody else has said. And while we're on that, the same happens with the apostle. Because there are a lot of people who are saying that they are apostles because they are so gifted as prophets, but they never heard God say, I have called you to be an apostle. And they step into roles because they feel like, I'm building and I'm doing all of these things, but God never said. God has always chose the apostle, because even when Paul was not chosen by the 11, Matthias, however you want to pronounce his name, he was. But you never hear anything about him ever again, because man chose him. But God chose the apostle Paul. So we really have to be careful how we step into things, because the unnecessary warfare is great when we are out of order, out of the plan and will of what God has assigned and designed for us to be and to walk in. And even walking in it too soon. I took a fall back. I have built nothing. You know, the things that I am building, I'm in transition and moving into doing what I'm called to do. But I'm okay where I'm at right now until I get to where I have proof, evidence, and results.